We have with us Mr. Kingshuk Ganguly, who is a stalwart in the industry, in the HR, leadership, executive coaching domain. He is also an entrepreneur since 2011. He has a total of 25 plus years of experience in various leadership roles with S&P Global, Fidelity, GE, and other firms. He runs his consulting firm Lightbulb Moments Consulting at this point of time and works with clients to develop strong leadership to sustain a high performance culture. He's an MBA from SP Jain Institute of Management and Research and is an engineer before that. He has trained large number of clients. He's coached 150 clients across 15 countries in the last 10 years, close to 1800 plus hours of coaching experience. He's a fellow of Institute of Coaching, McLean Harvard Medical School. He's trained at Harvard Law School in negotiation, CCL Singapore in coaching, the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations UK, and uh, ISAPS. He's certified on multiple instruments that help a coachee gain insight, and he's certified on facilitation skills. In his last role, he was ex-senior director at HR at CRISIL, in a subsidiary of CRISIL called Coalition, is what he was handling there. Kingshuk, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us, and thanks a lot for taking out time. Uh, I will also just quickly lay down the context of what we are basically looking at doing today. The idea of this set of talks came from the fact that we were receiving a lot of questions from a lot of our students in terms of, what's really going on around us, unprecedented times, uncertain times. Careers are probably not so certain at this point of time. People are worried about how this is going to shape forward. Uh, so we thought who better than some of the industry professionals who have actually seen multiple cycles, who have been in that domain of probably working with people in close quarters, the domain of human resources, the domain of development, organizational development, etc. Again, from the financial services space. So that's what kind of gave the genesis to the thought that we'll do this series of talks. In today's talk, we have Kingshuk with us. We'll probably have a couple of other individuals coming with us over the next couple of weeks as well, guiding all of us about what is it that we should be expecting in the next 1 year. What is it that students can basically prepare themselves for? Is it time to be worried, or is it time to kind of tighten our belts and see what is going ahead? So without much ado, I'll not take too much of our time. I'll just lay down the broad context of how we are going to do this. There is a set of questions that we have received from a lot of students, so I'll kind of toss those questions to Kingshuk, and then we'll hear Kingshuk's answers. Some of those answers are already written on the slides as well, so you could see those answers as well. And then once we are done with those set of questions that are common, then we'll open the floor for Q&A where you can send in your questions. We'll try and take as many as possible and address those concerns and questions as well as we go along, right? So that's it from me. Over to you, Kingshuk. Thanks a lot once again for gracing us on this occasion. And we'll start with you. Uh, uh, I'll start with the first question, which is, the global economy is under turmoil at this point of time. We have had lockdowns post this, virus constraints that have been put in. India has also kind of gone into a lockdown, looks to be extending. Nobody knows exactly how it's playing out. Companies are in stress and employment opportunities are scarce. How do you think companies would approach this scenario?
Sure. So thank you, Thank you, Piyush, and thank you, participants from wherever you've logged in. It's a real pleasure to have you here. I know these are extraordinary times, and therefore extraordinary times for us also to reflect as to what is possible and what can be done. So this is a very valid question, and I think all of you are already reading quite a bit. So you're reading newspapers, at least on the web. You're seeing lots of TV, you're getting lots of information on WhatsApp. I think what is important at this stage is companies would look at things a little differently. So if we can go to the next slide, Piyush. Yeah. So I think few things that I could think of and whatever I have come across, I think the first thing is conserving cash will be really important. Many of you are students currently, or you have been students. Conserving cash is the thing to do at this moment, number one. Number two is companies are going to ask a question as to what jobs help us accomplish a task. Before that, companies are going to ask, why does a customer pay us, for accomplishing what kind of task for him or her? Which means if my role is negligible in helping a client accomplish a task, there is no payment for me. And these two are very important at this stage. Linked to that is companies are going to differentiate between good cost and a not good now cost, which means they're going to look at cost very differently. What's a good cost? So for example, clearly, you have to reach out to your customers. And for that, if you have to incur some cost, that's a good cost. So what's a not good now cost? Sometimes back, you would have seen an article by one of the CEOs of a top tier IT company who said that I don't foresee an organization or an office where 100% of the staff is required to come to office every day, which means my office space just needs to accommodate about 25% of the people. Now, that's his way of looking at a not good now cost. So that's a reality. I would also say that companies would stay with their strengths. Now, what does companies to stay with their strengths mean? If a company is good in something, this may not be the time to diversify into something else, unless there is a great business case, which means your existing customers, whatever they have been getting, whatever they have been expecting you to do for them, it is good to stay with them. So companies would stay with their strengths. Companies, I also foresee, would get closer to their customers. It's almost like a parent and child. Every time there is an anxiety around and the child is scared, what does the parent do? The parent does not take shelter in a different house. The parent goes closer to the child and holds him or her tighter. So this is a time to get closer to your customers. Work from home is a no-brainer. Clearly, corporates would look at work from home options. Third is hiring alternate profile. So what do we mean by alternate profile? A few days back, there was an article in Times of India which said that because work from home is an option now, and many are looking at it, people are also looking at hiring a different profile at a different cost point to serve the same delivery. So which means that a member who was not able to travel to office for some reason is able to deliver the same service from home at a lower cost. So he or she becomes an alternate profile. Next is jobs. There will be right sizing of jobs and there will be downsizing of jobs, for sure, because linked to the first point, conserving cash will be important. Pay increment bonus cuts we are all seeing, and this would be a fact because again companies need to survive in the short term to stay in the long term. So you are already reading people who have corporate executives, who have taken pay cuts and they are suggesting pay cuts in their organization. So it's not a loss of job, but just staying in the race in the short term. There is also a practice which has been there earlier times also, which is hiring one level below. So which means if I require a manager of 8 years experience to be taken for a role, is it possible to hire an assistant manager profile at a lower cost with a lower experience and train that person on the job and get the job done in the short term? So hiring one level below is a proven practice. There is also likely to be a dilemma between retaining a high cost A player and a 50th percentile B player. Now, I hope you all understand, A player and B player. 50th percentile is, I'm saying, someone who's not being paid at the top of the heap. Now, do I retain 4 B players or do I retain 1 A player? This is a question for many corporates, and I'm sure they are seized of it. There is also a practice which I'm noticing for the last 1 month, which is benching the high cost employees. So you're not terminating the high cost employees, but putting them on bench saying that stay quiet, stay below the radar, and don't do any work till something comes up suitable for you. But at the same time, we value your skill set, so be around. So these are some ways by which firms, I think, would be looking at post-COVID scenario. Piyush?
Okay, thanks, Kingshuk. I have a few follow-on questions which I'll take later, I think. We'll just go with the flow of the presentation for now. So the second question I have is, how does one look at this? It looks like a slightly difficult scenario, and how does one keep the stress away in this environment?
Yeah, so stress is a natural thing. And what I would say is, if we can do a small activity, so let me just do an activity here. Do participants have a pen and pad with them?
Sure, they should have. Otherwise, they can probably also use their cell phones if that is needed.
Cell
If they have
phones.
to write
Okay.
something down.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. So pull out your pen and pad or your cell phone, and pull out a fresh piece of page, and write down all the items that are on your mind which are worrying you and stressing you. Okay, so let's take a minute. Just write down all things that are worrying you right now. If you have done that, may I request you to go to a fresh page and write down all the worries on your mind which remain. So maybe you have to think a little more. So I'm requesting you to think a little more and see if there's something left. Once you have done that, go to another fresh page now, the third fresh page, and write down what else is on your mind. So whatever you've written on the first 2 pages is good. Is there anything else? Write that down on the third page. Now, by this time, you would have got the drift of it. So can we hear some responses, Piyush? What is their experience of doing this activity?
So guys, we need us to write down in the questions panel, what do you feel about this entire activity? After doing the activity, does it give you some sense, basically, right? Now, people have written some of the problems that they're looking at, which is, things like the third page is actually empty. They've not been able to write anything, or, there is, what's happening with jobs. People are anxious. I think now the more relevant answers are also coming in. One, as I said, the third page is empty. Some people are saying it has reduced the stress. You have to think more, harder about the problems that you have. Prioritize the things that you have on the first page, and then kind of go next. Third and second page were difficult to map down. A bit relaxed after writing it. More clarity about my worries. Again, I think third page people ran out of worries, so they felt good. That's the general theme that we are seeing, that a lot of the people are saying that there is better optimism and prioritizing that is happening, and clarity is emerging out of it.
Thank you, Piyush. So if you look at it, stress is just a thought thing. It is just a thing in your mind. And this activity you can do any number of times in a day. So at night, in the morning, whenever you're feeling a little down, just pull out your pen and pad and just write down as you feel like. And as you said, as you saw here, it is difficult to go beyond the first or the second page. Maybe the first page you will still fill up few things, but I doubt if you can finish off, those 18 or 19 lines in a full page. Because Moment we put things out on a piece of paper or talk to someone, the toxicity in us vanishes. Because till we do that, our mind is like a laptop which is having 18 or 20 Excel files open. And we all know that a laptop which has 20 Excel files open, unless it's an extraordinary laptop, usually would slow down. So what do you do for a laptop to get a better service? You switch off the Excel files. So when you write it down on a piece of paper, you will see this thing vanish instantaneously. And right now, all of you got an example, in just about 2 minutes, you are having the medicine and you're in your own hands. Now, that is a tactical thing, but at the same time, very, very powerful and very, very effective. And this you can use to help your friend or colleague also, who may not be as strong as you or as inspired as you. It just doesn't take any skill, just some 10 minutes of quiet time, and you can do this. But at the same time, it is important to do the right thing. So for example, another activity is what is expected and what is right thing to do. Now, suppose I ask you, in a post-COVID scenario, what is the expected thing that corporates will do? Now, like you, as I said, even I would look at, saving costs, conserving cash, figuring out things by which I can use technology and, deliver stuff. But what is the right thing to do? Right thing to do is figuring out my business model. If I'm running a restaurant, what is the right thing to do today? If I'm a pani puri vendor, what is the right thing to do today? Will wearing gloves help, or should I do something else? So that's the way you look at stress and you manage stress. Piyush, you want to add something here?
No, I think this is quite good, Kingshuk. This was enlightening in general. And we'll move on to the next one,
Sure.
which is, a lot of the students, we have had this concern that, students have missed out on internships, or at least, the nature of the internship has changed because of the entire travel ban that has come out. So the internship is now going on virtually with a lot of the companies. And, so the experience of the internship in a lot of the ways has changed. So what can they do when they go back to their campuses?
Yeah.
I'll put the next slide on as well.
Yeah, so there's a great question, and I know if I were in your place, I would worry too. My question to you is, if you were a recruiter in a firm, how much time would you discuss with a potential employee on COVID and why he or she didn't do a full or partial or nil internship? So if on the chat board you can write down, how much time would you spend discussing with an candidate as to why they didn't finish their internship? So can you just write down in minutes?
You can send an
answer. Would you spend 5 minutes? Yeah, would you spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour? How much time would you spend?
So I've received a few answers that basically most of the people are answering 2 to 5 minutes. Some are saying we won't even ask because we know the scenario. Extreme answers is about 5 to 10 minutes that I'm getting, highest.
That's it. That's it. Now the point is, our interview duration itself is about 10 or 15 minutes. Unless it's a very serious interview, it's a second or third or fourth level interview, our interview time itself is 15-20 minutes. And if a recruiter has called you, they want to see the best of you. They already have an opinion about you. They love your resume. They see something unique in you, and that's why they have called you. And they want to hear the best story that you can say. Now, he or she is not interested in COVID. Just now, you saw you are not interested in COVID or the impact of it. Just tell your best story. Absolutely. What you did during this lockdown period, whom did you help? What difference did you make? Some people are saying that I learned cooking, I helped my partner, I helped my parents, I helped, so on, so and so forth. I learned some courses. They want to hear your best story, and they want to hear why you are most suitable for that role. So don't sort of go into that session with a lot of worry. Go with the fact that they love you, they want to hear you, and put your best story forward. So I've just put down a few questions here. Ask yourself, what am I doing right now? And next question is, what should I be doing right now? It is that same thing, which is what is expected and what is the right thing to do. Just do the right thing. And every time you feel stressed, go to the mirror or pull out a pen and pad. Last is I have to written down a small story. The British rowing team, they asked themselves only one question: will it make the boat go faster? Now, this is a fantastic story. You should read it up on Google. Now, post 1912, their Olympic team had never won a rowing gold. In 2000 Olympics, they won their rowing gold. So 88 years is what it took them to win a rowing gold. The only question they asked them is, will it make the boat go faster? So for example, if 8 of them wanted to go to a pub, the question was, by going to the pub, will it make the boat go faster? Well, if they felt it was not true, they didn't go for the pub. That's it. So whatever activity you are doing right now, or you plan to do in the next 15 days or 1 month, ask yourself, will it help you? I mean, and you frame your own question really, right? So that's what I would say. And be very, very proud of yourself. Be very, very bullish about yourself. World has seen tougher days in the past. Many of you would have read about Spanish flu, and it happened during World War. And can you imagine? 100 years back, you had World War and Spanish flu. So world is in a much better place. Sure, many things are not happening, but that's okay. That's a great place to look forward and figure out what we should do right now. So my invitation is, frame your question.
Sure. Thanks, Kingshuk. Next question we have is, any parallels of this situation with 2008 or 2001 crisis? A lot of us have not really seen those. And, even then we had some students laid off from companies probably in 2008. I honestly started my career in 2004. I finished my engineering in 2002, which was the 2001 crisis time. So haven't seen the 2001 crisis from the beginning to the end, but was in the middle of it at that point. So what are the parallels? What do you think people can draw from some of those experiences?
Yeah, true. So 2001, if you can go to the next slide, in 2001 and 8, there were shocks that were limited to few sectors. So aviation, BFSI. BFSI stands for banking, financial services, and insurance, risk, regulations, etc. Frankly, it was not about survival. It was not a life and death in that sense. Sure, some people died. Some people committed suicide because of the inquiry, etc. Some people died because of committed suicide because of lack of job. But it was intense in some geographies, it was less in others, and the spread was a very step function. So it was very discrete. So it was pretty serial in that sense. So something happened and then something happened, right? But 2020, I think, is a little different because it is about life and livelihood, number one. Number two is it's also a great reset point for businesses. They are all thinking about their business model. What should we do? What have we doing so far? And what does the customer want in future? Many of you are reading as to how governments are showing up their leadership capability in these times, right? So some governments are standing up, some are behaving the way they are. So you are also seeing a variation in the leadership in government. So leadership in the public sector is also going to be a demand for future. How do you lead nation in crisis? You're also looking at nations, etc., and you're also looking at cultures. So some cultures are doing handling COVID in a particular way. Some cultures are handling COVID in a particular way and then changing. I'm not taking names of nations, but you are seeing those differences. It's also a fountain for medical research, innovation, new vaccines, new respect for some professions that we just took for granted. I think there's a newfound respect for air, water, food, shelter, and internet. So 2020 is clearly about livelihood. It's about culture shifts. It's about business models, and is across the globe. And developed countries have got hit very, very hard. So they are going to reinvent a lot of things on their own. So what have not been innovation pockets, many of them have got hit very, very badly. And probably it's a reset time for them, that what they need to do going forward. So the fundamental difference is the return of job in terms of the economic downturn, I think is more widespread. It is going to be very, very strong in quite few pockets. India, we believe is going to be very, very tough in the next few months, maybe up to a year or so. Some have figures of saying going on 2 years also, but a lot of things will also happen as a result of that. So that's my fundamental difference between 1, 8, and 20.
Okay, fair enough. So the next question then is, what do you think are the key areas company would expect the students to prepare themselves in this time? And how can students keep themselves ready for the opportunities once the market opens up, or they are back to the colleges, or they are, if someone has just joined a workforce, then how do they keep themselves ready for the opportunities that come up once the market starts going back to normalcy post this?
Yeah. So I have been following, quite a few students on the LinkedIn as to what they are doing and how they are doing. So I'll give you some examples. Many students have reached out saying that here are the 5 projects that I can do if I had an option, and they are sharing it with companies in a public forum, through networks, etc. And the companies which have the capacity, to take them on. So there is virtual internship opening up. Now that's a very tactical solution, but people are doing that and students are getting options, number one. But at a philosophical level, at a very long-term level, I would say, study the companies that are innovating and staying afloat. You have examples of that. That will give you ideas as to what's a good cost and what's a not good now cost. Follow the leaders who are doing those changes. You will learn a lot from reading from them. Read up their bio, read up their work that they have done, and find out how they are leading in a crisis. Ask yourself what you are good at. I personally feel design thinking is a great course. It's a very open-ended subject. It does not choose between an engineer and an MBA and a CA or an architect or a journalist, but it really opens up your mind as to what you are good at and what you can do. I would hesitate, to advise people to invest in courses which are very expensive at this stage. I know there are a lot of free webinars, but there are also courses which are pretty expensive. I would say conserve cash at this stage, but do look out for online courses that have an international network, a great pedigree, and low investment. So for example, if you go to HBR site, there are lots of free webinars that happen all the time. You can look at building an international network, etc. And my second last statement is spend good time on LinkedIn, sending invites to a network that you're aspiring for. So choose the profiles carefully, draft your request, very carefully, and connect with them. Out of 100 connects, out of 100 invites, you probably might hear from 5, probably hear from 10, but nurture and nourish them in a big way. And talk to seniors in the corporates to understand how the firm is reorganizing itself. But if I were to crunch all these 8 or 9 points together, I would say that stay busy. Moment you see some negative thoughts entering your mind, change your thought process, change your breathing frequency. So breathe fast and breathe slow. instantaneously you will see that your negative thoughts have vanished. If some of you have liked this new page writing thing, try that. But stay away from people who are saying things are bad, saying things are negative. Don't watch too much of WhatsApp and TV, television. If it means staying alone just to keep yourself inspired, I would say that's much better than uh, trying to read up on current affairs at this stage, or about the pandemic at this stage. So that's how I would say, people who are, because when I interview the person, when he or she is in front of me, as I said, I want to hear the best story the person is saying. I would like to know how positive is the person, because if I'm putting this person in charge of a team, the team might be very low on morale. And can this person lead that team, or is the person itself is very depressed? So naturally, the chances of the candidate getting hired are very low. So keep yourself in good shape and do physical exercise. Even if it's 15-20 minutes, I think it's a great idea. Piyush?
Okay, thanks, Kingshuk. Good words of advice. Uh, what would be your other advice to students? In specific and in general. I think you have also kind of listed down a few books that are there, but I think you've already given a lot of pertinent advice. Anything else that you would want to add to that?
So I've written some books. I'm sure you have your books of inspiration. I would say only one thing, which is just one more thing, which is, talk to many people, but, listen to advice of one or two people whom you really trust. So, and this I found very, very helpful because, we have our own board of advisors. And I have one advisor who has been advising me for the last 11 years, free of charge. He's a very senior person, and he has an option to not to do that. It's just goodwill. So one day I asked him that, Milind, why do you, do this with me? Every time I ask you, you don't, shy away. You don't ask for money. Why do you advise? Why do you give such, powerful advice? So he said one thing which struck. Say that, Kingshuk, I advise many firms, many corporates, many individuals. Most of them nod their head, but they don't follow it up. They don't follow it up, and they don't circle back saying that, I have done this or I have completed this. In your case, I love the fact that you come back later and say, I have done this, I tried this worked, this didn't work, give me something else. So that's the reason I come back and give you advice which is very, very precise and helpful. So in your case also, you have all the tools and resources in front of you. So if there are people who really trust you and whom you trust, just go with them, one or two people. But more than two people, I think, you're likely to get confused. And more confusion will lead to more stress. So keep away from a lot of consulting. Piyush?
Yes, I think some of the books you have also mentioned, which you have liked in general. So I think that's the broad set of questions we had, Kingshuk, in terms of the generic questions that I'd put in. Some students have put forth a few more questions, so I'll come to those as well. Thanks a lot for your time in general on this. I will just quickly read out a few questions. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them on the questions panel. Uh, Due to the paucity of time, we may not be able to take everything, but we'll try and take most of the major important ones that are there, where we can use Kingshuk and his knowledge to kind of get our answers. So I think, see, a couple of questions that we have kind of found is for example, people have kind of asked, how does the education system change after this? Do people kind of think about doing an MBA, not doing an MBA? Do MBA colleges kind of go and rethink what what kind of stuff they are doing? How does that work?
Yeah. So if I was a institution providing MBA education, I would rethink, MBA as a curriculum of a 2-year program. Clearly, I would also rethink my pricing, and I think it's a great place of reset for education. Clearly, because I was hearing someone saying that it will be difficult to for schools and offices to get students and employees respectively to get back to work and school, because I have got used to an online learning. So MBA is no different. So as a subject, as a stream, MBA, they have their edge, and I don't see them going out, in any time in the near future. And I've heard, senior executives, in the people in the circle that I admire, saying that. So MBAs, I don't think, going anywhere. But the way it is delivered is going to change, I feel, and proactive institutions will take steps. There is also a school of thought which says that you can give a 2-year curriculum and hope for a certain kind of a recall and application. There is another school of thought which says if you give these learnings in space of 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 kind of days in between, the learning is much, much different. So MBA education, I clearly feel, will change from an online model to a mix of a blended learning, shorter courses, lower kind of fees. So definitely, and the subjects will undergo a drastic change, in the relevant institutions for sure.
Fair enough. There are some students who have been in a tough spot at this point of time, basically because either internship has been rescinded or final offers have been rescinded. While
Yeah.
I'll probably take part of that answer straight away in terms of honestly from a perspective of what should be done next. I think we keep saying that control what is controllable, which is what is in your hands. External situations
True.
can't be controlled. uh, so how do you address this? While you have answered part of it in terms of keeping themselves ready and motivated for the next set of things that would come up, I'll merge another question into this, which is coming as a concern because people specifically in the financial services industry who want to kind of join the financial service industry, Mumbai is a very important sort of destination for most of them, and Mumbai seems to be one of the more sort of affected cities at this point of time, where things could probably remain a little bit in turmoil for a few more weeks than, let's say, rest of the country. So how do students basically address this challenge where they they go about trying to kind of keep themselves motivated about the next set of opportunities that come to them?
Yeah. So it's a very valid point, and if I were in their place, I would also think in the same way. But given the advantage that I have of being away from the system and but at the same time gone through this, I mean, not the way these members are going through, but if I look back, if I look at a student from this community who, if they were to meet me, I would not really hold it against them if they have not done an internship at all. I would really like to see if they have done, let's say, if they give me a list of 100 YouTube videos they have watched, let's say 50 Coursera courses they have done, and 25 EDX courses they have done. They have conducted some webinars, for their community or for whoever is available on a chosen topic. They have published some papers. They have written articles on technical papers, whatever they have learned so far for a community. They have prepared, WhatsApp videos about, how to read a balance sheet, for example, or how to sell a fan, for example. What are the selling techniques? All these resources are in my head. Now, if I fill up my bio with all this, I would appreciate that person far more than someone who says, I did a 2-month internship at, let's say, a big 4 firm, or let's say a, FMCG firm, or, IT firm, or I was in Denmark for a summer internship, but this time, I'm sorry, I'm in a city in India, it's not been very attractive. I would not hold it them against them at all. So I know I'm not in their position, but frankly, that internship, really does not matter beyond a point. At this stage, I'm only going to look at, what initiative they have shown, given what the constraints were. Because tomorrow in my firm, I'm going to have constraints. My customer would not pay. My customer would, cancel an agreement at a short notice for whatever reasons. My top management might leave. My building, God forbid, could get damaged for some reason, and everyone is homeless. Anything could happen. I don't want people, my managers at that time to say that, only if this is there, then, things are suitable. I want to be, have a situation where they say that, okay, we only have a cottage to run from, so we'll do the, work from cottage. So that's what I'm going to look at. I would not care about internship, how much they have done, what they have done. I will trust the students blindly and move on. And frankly, if someone doesn't trust what you are saying, despite your best efforts, my question to you is, do you want to join a firm like that? I mean, this has been a reset for developed countries, forget corporates. So if a corporate or a manager is holding it against you that, just because you didn't do an internship, I mean, ask yourself if you would like to join that firm. That would be my, a little crude answer, but I would see it that way.
Sure. Thanks, Kingshuk. One more question that's also probably coming by after people looked at your profile and background is if someone wants to build a career in, let's say, financial analysis or rating agencies, essentially, then what is the kind of skill set that they should kind of work on in the next, let's say, few months as they're preparing for it?
Sure. So find a finance guru in your network, dad, mom, uncle, aunt, neighbor, friend's friend, whoever, and talk to them and ask them that, how do I get into this? So for example, how do you learn to analyze a balance sheet? How do you read Economic Times? How do you read Business Standard? All these are great ways to get yourself ingrained. Read about the stock market. Now, if reading on your own is difficult, fix up a tutorial with any of these trusted friends that you have, saying that every week I want to come for 1-hour tutorial on this, and help me with this. Because when we interview people, I mean, I'm saying we, assuming I'm in CRISIL, but that's not the case. So when we interviewed in CRISIL, that is what we looked at. When I interview students, in colleges, I'm associated with some of the colleges, in Bombay as well as in Jamshedpur and few other places. When we do mock interviews and people say, I'm interested in financial services, I'm interested in ratings, I'm interested in BFSI. The first thing we ask is, tell me what have you done to prove your interest? Some students are able to say that, I know BHC Sensex, all the stocks by heart. I know their last 3 years financials. I know what's their weightage, how they contribute. I also know what's the price arbitrage between NSE and BSE, etc., etc. When I ask them about their background, they say I'm an engineer, or let's say I'm an eco graduate or a commerce graduate. What matters really is the effort that they have put in, to be ready for the interview. So books are available, people are available, but the effort that you put in will show in the interview, and that's what will make it good. The standard preparation, of course, is financial background or engineering background. CRISIL, for example, has CA, CFA, PhDs, we also have lots of PhD not from eco alone. We also have, they also have from quantitative techniques background. So lots of background they have. So PhDs, CFAs, CAs are the profiles that CRISIL used to hire. And I'm sure it is true for the other rating agencies also. Of course, based on a function of what's their revenue mix from rating versus research and analytics. So you have a standard track, but if you don't have a standard track and if you don't have education but you're interested, then that's the way you prepare for yourself.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks, Kingshuk. I think this is really, really helpful, and I think this has been a great sort of time that we have spent trying to learn a few things from you. At this point, I think we will be closing the session. So thanking you a lot for taking out time and from your busy schedule and helping us with the session. I'm sure the students will find a lot of value in what we have discussed today. Just to kind of add a couple of quick points from my side around it is, guys, everyone knows this is a tough time. Kingshuk has told us that some of the things we can do to keep stress away, as well as do things in terms of keeping ourselves prepared. It's amazing how internet is helping people connect with each other at this point of time. It is a remarkable time where people are approaching others for help, and everyone is kind of extending a helping hand to others. If you look at stories around you, almost everyone is in the same boat, but people are going out of their way to help people who have approached them. So don't shy away from any kind of help that you need. Please feel free to reach out. There's no rocket science in what is going on around us, or what needs to be done here. We need to be better prepared. Everyone needs a little bit of guidance, and I think most people out there would be more than willing to kind of guide you. So do reach out in case there is any kind of help that you need. You have our coordinates written here. I think Kingshuk is available on LinkedIn. We are available on LinkedIn. Thanks a lot, Kingshuk. Thanks for your time, and appreciate you taking this out.
Thank you, Piyush, and thank you, Parth, and thank you, the larger community, all those who logged in from different places. Really appreciate. Wish you all the best, and just don't give up. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.